"You came back," he said softly. Emma didn't waste time. "Who are you?" she demanded. "What's going on? That man in the suit, what does he know about you?" The homeless man sighed, as if the weight of his past had finally caught up to him. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," he said, "but I have no choice now." He looked around, ensuring no one else was nearby, then spoke in a hushed tone. "I was once a powerful man, someone in a position to change things, to help people. But I crossed the wrong people. They made me disappear, erased everything about me, turned me into this." He motioned to his ragged clothes. "They wanted to silence me, so they gave me nothing but this life. I've been living in hiding, waiting for the right moment to make things right. And you've been caught in the middle of it." Emma's head spun. It was all too much. She wanted to believe him, but the pieces didn't fit. "That man in the suit," he continued, "he's one of them. They're watching, waiting. And now that you know, they'll come for you too." Just as Emma opened her mouth to respond, the sound of footsteps approached from behind. Before she could react, the man in the suit stepped into view again, a sinister smile creeping across his face. "You should have stayed out of this, Emma," he said, his voice cold. "Now, you'll never be able to walk away." In a flash, the homeless man stepped forward, pushing Emma aside and standing between her and the stranger. For the first time, his eyes were filled with a fire she hadn't seen before. "I won't let you hurt her," he growled, his voice low and steady. But just as the tension in the air reached its peak, something unexpected happened. The man in the suit paused, his eyes flicking toward the street behind Emma. A car screeched to a halt. Dozens of men in black suits emerged, surrounding them. The homeless man's face went pale. "It's too late," he whispered, his voice breaking. In a sudden, shocking turn, the man in the suit turned on his heels, signaling his team to retreat. "We'll be back for you," he called over his shoulder, before disappearing into the darkness. Emma stood frozen, her mind reeling. What had just happened? She turned to the homeless man, but he was gone, vanishing into the shadows, leaving behind only the haunting echo of his words. As Emma stood there, trying to process everything, she realized one thing: this was far from over. The truth had only just begun to unravel, and the danger wasn't over, it was just beginning. Emma stood in the quiet aftermath, her mind still spinning from the chaos. The homeless man was gone, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. But one thing was clear: she was no longer just a waitress. Her life had been touched by something far bigger than she ever imagined. She returned to the diner, her thoughts heavy but clear. The danger wasn't over, but for now, she knew what she had to do: stay strong, stay aware, and uncover the full truth of what had been hidden from her. Whatever the man's past was, whatever his connection to the powerful figures who sought to control him, she couldn't back down now. The world wasn't always what it seemed, and Emma, having stepped into a new world of secrets and intrigue, was determined to find the truth. The man may have disappeared, but his story was far from over. The energy in the courtroom changed in an instant. The judge swallowed hard. Something was about to happen, something no one had expected. The judge's face paled as the officer stepped forward, a file in hand. The entire courtroom held its breath. The prosecutor remained still, watching, waiting. He had sensed something was off, but even he hadn't expected what was coming next. The officer cleared his throat and addressed the judge directly. "Your Honor, we need to speak with you immediately. It's urgent." His voice was steady, but there was something in his tone that made it clear: this wasn't just a routine matter. The judge hesitated, glancing at the prosecutor as if searching for an escape, but there was none. With a sharp breath, he nodded. "We'll take a brief recess," he announced, his voice faltering for the first time. As he stood, the prosecutor finally spoke. "Your Honor, before you go, you might want to explain why your name just came up in a federal investigation." The courtroom erupted. The judge froze. This wasn't just about a fine anymore. This was something much bigger. And now there was no way out. The judge's breath caught in his throat. The weight of the prosecutor's words hung heavy in the air. The officer stepped closer, holding out the file, and the judge hesitated before finally taking it. His hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. Whatever was inside, it was clear. His past had finally caught up with him. The courtroom murmurs grew louder, people exchanging stunned glances. The prosecutor didn't move, his expression unreadable. He hadn't come here expecting this, but justice had a way of revealing itself. Slowly, the judge sank back into his chair, defeated, his authority, his arrogance, gone. The prosecutor gave him one last look before turning to leave. He didn't need to say anything else. The truth had spoken for itself. As he stepped outside, the crisp air filled his lungs. This case had started with an unfair fine, but it had ended with something much bigger: real accountability.